Hello and welcome to Fact Friday. Today, Ellie McCabe again joins us and we are looking at deeds of variation and disclaimers. A person that is entitled to inheritance cannot be forced to take their inheritance and can in fact redirect their inheritance in full or in part to somebody else. It might be that they do not wish to redirect their inheritance at all and instead wish to disclaim it entirely. Ellie will be discussing the main differences between the two. And as such, Ellie, we have three questions for you today. The first question is, can you give us an example of when someone might create a deed of variation?
Thanks, Michael. Yes, well, someone might commonly create a deed of variation to save inheritance tax, or at least to try and mitigate inheritance tax in their own estate. So an example would be Alan. He's inherited £100,000 from his mother's estate. She's left a will, but he decides that he doesn't really need that money and he doesn't want it coming into his estate because it might have an adverse effect on his own inheritance tax position. And he'd quite like to be able to give £50,000 of that to his children. So rather than Alan taking on board the money from mum's estate and then it going out as a gift from Alan to the children, he would need to survive 7 years from the date of that gift because it's a potentially exempt transfer. Rather than doing that, Alan can execute a deed of variation, and it will be as though the £50,000 of the children went straight from their grandmother's estate through the will to them. It bypasses Alan. What Alan's effectively done is he's managed to redirect part of the inheritance to go to his children, and that saves him having to survive 7 years from the date of the gift.
Excellent. Thank you, Ellie. Now, the second question we have are there any special requirements when creating a deed of variation?
Yes, so it needs to be made within 2 years of the date of the deceased. So in the example I gave before, that would be from the date of the death of Alan's mother. That would be the 2-year window. It also needs to be in writing. It needs to be made by the individual who is benefiting originally and then who's varying. So Alan, in this example, within 2 years of the date of the deceased death. And it needs to indicate clearly what's going on. So which disposition is the subject of the variation, i.e. which asset is Alan redirecting. And also it needs to state that the variation changes the destination of the disposition, i.e. it's redirecting it so that someone else is benefiting from it. Also, it should contain a statement pertaining to the inheritance tax and capital gains tax position, and really stating that this gift is made as though it was made by the deceased. So when we're looking at IHT and CGT, it's as though the deceased made that out of their estate, and it's nothing to do with the original beneficiaries, i.e. Alan's estate.
Superb. Thank you very much, Ellie. And the third and final question we have today is, when would it be appropriate for an individual to prepare a deed of disclaimer?
So a deed of disclaimer is commonly mistaken for a deed of variation, but a deed of disclaimer is where you would completely disclaim your inheritance entirely and you have no power to redirect where it goes. So in the example that I just gave, say Alan was left £100,000 under the will of his mother, but he perhaps hadn't spoken to his mother for a very long time and didn't want the money and just felt that it just wouldn't be right to accept it. He's able to just completely disclaim that and walk away from it and say, I just don't want anything to do with it. He can only do that with the whole gift. He can't say, I'll take a bit, I'll disclaim a bit and I'll take a bit, or I'll redirect a bit and disclaim a bit. If you're disclaiming, it has to be the whole thing. And once you've disclaimed, you have to just walk away from it. You can't say where it goes. It would just fall back into the deceased estate, either to pass through their will, or if there's no will, through the laws of intestacy.
Superb. Thank you, Ellie. Now, if anyone has any questions, please do either pop them in the comment section below or drop either Ellie or I an email. Next week, again, Ellie joins us for the second installment of Deeds of Variation. Hope you can all tune in. Take care.